All right, what's going on today, YouTube? Today's going to be a little bit different of a vibe. It's not going to be so much, like trying to get into like any kind of gameplay and stuff like that. Obviously, I'm going to preface this off by saying the Minecraft series is probably not going to be up for a while, at least a long while. I'm assuming just because my PC, the graphics card like melted. I don't know how else to put it. I don't know like what else you could say would happen. So I had to buy a new one. It's a little bit less like able to handle stuff. So that's where we're at on the series from the PC stuff. I'll no longer be playing R6 on the PC either. I'll be starting if I do end up streaming over at kick.com/dubcity81. I think it has three eyes. I'm not sure. I can't remember. If it doesn't, obviously it's just my regular name, dubcity81. But I'll make sure to like put the link like right here when I say that. What was I saying? Oh yeah, about R6. I have all the progress and all that stuff obviously on my PC, but I can't stream and play from my PC. So what I did was I got a Elgato or got an Elgato. I'm not sure how that you would say that with it being a Spanish term technically. Um, for Christmas, and then I'm just going. I've ran all the stuff to where my Xbox comes through my like PC with the Elgato stuff like that, and it records through there. The only thing that I'm having trouble with is, um, I'm having trouble with party chat. So if you guys have like any advice on how you guys do it, or I've looked up videos stuff like that, found some maybe fixes, but I haven't had the opportunity to test it out yet, as I just got the Elgato a couple days ago. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is we are going to be talking about the Lions winning the NFC North. I'll flash up the little graphic that I've made for this stuff right here, and then all the graphics continuing forward will be right here. First time since 1993. So it's been a long time. It's been 30 years since a Detroit Lions team was the king of the North, and even back then it was this NFC Central. So the Lions have literally never been kings of the North. So it's a very big um, achievement that I want to shout out the Lions for. I never thought after we brought in Matt Patricia, we fired Jim Caldwell after going like 97, 8-8, 9-7 or something like that. Stafford's playing good, all that stuff. Uh, we fired Jim Caldwell, go into the Matt Patricia era and the Bob Quinn era, and then just completely tanked. Matt Patricia is a complete and utter fraud from when he was in Detroit, or not Detroit, New England. He was a fraud in Detroit, obviously, but just came in, was terrible, made terrible moves. The Trey Flowers deal comes to mind with that. The Golden Tate and Darius Slay, um, moves come to mind. Obviously, Darius Slay hasn't played as well this year, but has been an All Pro like the last, not like a certified All Pro, but has played on an All Pro level for the last 2 or 3 years, and was really up and coming in Detroit until he got into a practice rift or something like that with Matt Patricia, and so then they sent him on his way for like a second round pick or something like that. It was insane, and it was the worst day of my life figuring out that Darius Slay was not going to be a line anymore. So yeah, I never really thought that I would ever see a Detroit Lions NFC North victory or NFC North clinch, and then a home playoff game obviously comes in with that. But it has happened for the first time since 1993, and I think a big part of that is Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have really built through the trenches in a way that no other like Lions GM head coach duo has ever done. Like if you look back into the Matt Stafford era as a whole, he had like four 100-yard rushers his entire career, and the Lions have had like 14 or 15 games this year with 100-yard rusher, and some of them have even been 200-yard rushers. With the Chargers game coming to mind with Monty, his big 75-yard run, and then obviously Jameer Gibbs still getting a big share of the load there. They've built through the trenches. Penei Sewell was an outstanding pick. In the Bob Quinn, Matt Patricia, even Jim Caldwell. I can't remember who the GM was back then. Those eras, they probably would have picked Jalen Waddle. They probably would have picked, um, some sort of skill position that wouldn't help the team really, help the team's like build out their roster. The way that I always put it is the like 2012 Lions up until like the 2021 Lion 2020 2021 Lions. Jeez, oh Pete, that was a hard word to get out. Were built on like a. My finger is stuck. Oh, were built like was like a castle built on a sand foundation. There was no real offensive line pieces, no real defensive line pieces. You know what I mean? We got one good player on each side, and then that they would be like, "That's it. We'll sign free agents for whatever reason." Um, that being the Taylor Decker, Ndamukong Suh, stuff like that. And then Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell will come in and automatically draft Penei Sewell, an outstanding, literally in my opinion, the best right tackle in the league. Um, in the Dallas game that happened just this past weekend, on the last drive, he got put up on an island with Micah Parsons and absolutely just ate his sack lunch. Um, which I don't know, that was surprising considering they put him on Taylor Decker all day and he was just tearing Taylor Decker to pieces. But then they draft Aiden Hutchinson, who's been an outstanding defensive end. I think he's top five in the league. And his statistics would prove to be that, but he doesn't have the sacks um, to prove he's a tier one D end, which is whatever it is. He's tied for like third with pressures with like 87 or something like that. So, but I think those two things have really allowed this team to be better than majority of Detroit Lions teams in the past. But going back to the NFC North title for the first time since 1993, these are things that were not invented the last times the Lions won the NFC Central North, whatever you want to call it. Bitcoin was not invented until 2008. The Ring doorbell that you see on every front door nowadays was not invented until 2013. I was not born. Me was not born for 7 years after the last title. The oldest player on the Lions is Jake McQuaid. He's a long snapper. He's been in the league for like 11 years or something like that. He was born on December 7th, 1987. He was 6 when the Lions last won the NFC North. And that's the oldest player. Jahmyr Gibbs was born on March 20th, 2002. He's 2 years younger than me. He wasn't even born the last time the Lions won the North. So that's just crazy. Also, I have here written that GoPro wasn't invented until 2004. And then the graphic that I put here, you'll see the change from the GoPro 1, which is going to be like somewhere in this area, to the GoPro 12, which will be right here, which is absolutely insane. I have a GoPro Hero 9 for future videos for my bike and stuff like that. This is what the 9 looks like. 12 looks even crazier. Um, and then obviously the 1 looks like a brick with a little analog screen like what you would see on like a Nokia or something like that. So it's just crazy how long it's actually been. Moving forward, since I don't have a best friend to do this with, I'm gonna have to just move right along. Um, the Lions have two real possible playoff matchups. One is LA. Obviously, that's gonna be a crazy emotional game with Matt Stafford coming back to his first time being back in Detroit since the trade, because the 2021 game was in LA, which he won, obviously, which was good for him. I was happy. Also helped us get Aiden Hutchinson in the grand scheme of everything. Um, the other probable matchup, which there's a lot of things that have to go on right here for this to be the matchup, would be there's also another one where we would play the Seahawks, but that one was kind of like this is the I guess you this there was. All right, so right here I have written we would play Green Bay if we were the 2 seed, which would mean the Lions would have to win, Washington would have to beat Dallas, the Giants would have to beat Philly, Green Bay would have to beat Minnesota, New Orleans would have to beat Atlanta, Arizona would have to beat Seattle, and then San Francisco would have to beat the Rams. Um, they wouldn't have to beat the Rams. It wouldn't really matter. That one is just I was just writing down who would have to win in order for that playoff scenario to pan out. But I guess it could be Green Bay would not make it if Seattle beat Arizona. Then we would be the 2 seed, and Seattle would be the 7 seed. So then we would play Seattle instead of Green Bay in that scenario. But the Rams and Green Bay are the two real like options I think we have, and I think we match up both really, really well. I don't think the only thing I could think of is if Cooper Cup, Puka Nakua, and Cooper Cup just go absolutely nuts on our defense. But I think even then in Detroit, Jared Goff's going to have a master class like he always does. We'll get into that later in Detroit. Um, I found a funny little statistic. The last time Detroit and Green Bay played in the playoffs, they played twice in the playoffs in the same year. One was January 8th, 1994. The Packers won 28-24. And then December 31st, 1994. So almost an entire, 365 days. What would that be? That's too much math. Yeah, that's too much math. I'm not gonna do it right now. 16-12, Green Bay won, but that was in the same year they decided to play. Obviously, it's two different seasons. For some reason, the wild card round was on the 31st instead of being the first or second week of January. So I just thought it was funny because I looked up to see when the last time the Lions and Green Bay played in the playoffs. They've only played twice, as far as I could find, and it was in the same exact year, which is crazy. Uh, Moving on, obviously I'm being a little bit optimistic and I haven't gone past this point, but if we were to win um, against the Rams or the Seahawks, technically, or Packers, the Philly Tampa Bay game, this is if we were the third seed. Philly or Tampa Bay would come to Detroit as I have in this mock. Seattle upsets Dallas, which would be the 7th seed versus the 2 seed. Um, that would mean Seattle would go to San Francisco, and then the 4 or 5 seed would come to us. That would be Philly or Tampa Bay. Like I said in this mock draft, or not draft, but mock up of the playoffs, Dallas would win the NFC East because they would just all they have to do is beat Washington, and they have the um they what would that be called? They had it's not a tiebreaker because I don't think they have the same record. They have I don't know. It's a word I can't think of right now. But Philly and Tampa Bay would both come to Detroit, who depending on who won that, and then um, Seattle would go to San Francisco. In the other scenario, where Detroit is the 2nd seed, that would obviously mean that I still think that Philadelphia would win the division if the Cowboys lose. If the Cowboys and Eagles both lose, I still think that the Eagles would win the division. So that would mean that the Eagles would be the 3 seed, the Lions would be the 2 seed, San Francisco would be the 1 seed. So then that would probably put us playing Seattle or Green Bay in that scenario. Whoever would win the 4 or 5, so it would be Tampa or Dallas, would come to Detroit at that point. Um, I gotta stop saying this. I'm sorry. This is my first time ever trying to do a podcast type scenario, so we're trying to like just suffer through it so I can say I got it under my belt and move forward. Because my first couple of YouTube videos, obviously, if you guys have watched those or watched me reacting to my first couple of YouTube videos, it was very like choppy, and I have the same sense of nerves with this because I'm trying to pump out a whole bunch of information. I'm trying to read the script that I wrote, but I just gotta focus. I just said All right, no more ums. So if in that type of scenario where the Lions are the 3 seed, Philadelphia and Tampa Bay would come to us because obviously I don't, or we would go to Dallas. Either way, this is what I have written. Philadelphia would be a really good matchup considering they would be the 5 seed. That would mean that we would be put into Detroit, so we wouldn't have to go to the link, and Jared Goff could have a masterclass against a very down year from Darius Slay and James Bradbury, and obviously we would have to deal with Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, the whole 9 yards. You know what I mean? So it would really, I think, in my opinion, it would fall on Jared Goff to have a really good game in order for us to make it to an NFC Championship in that kind of a scenario. Or if Tampa Bay wins, obviously they would come to us still because they would be a 4 seed, or they are going to be the 4 seed, but they would be the 4 seed coming into the 3 seed. If the 6, or I guess it wouldn't be the 6 because the Lions would beat the 6. If I think I've gotten too far ahead of myself. Either way, I'll just bring down my game breakdown for if we were to play Tampa Bay. It'd be in Detroit because that would be Seattle upsetting the Dallas. Okay, so now I understand why I wrote this. Baker would be a huge X factor. I don't know how he would play, in a divisional round of the playoffs. We've seen it. Last time we saw it was in 2019 against Chiefs, and he's one blown ref call away from, possibly beating the Chiefs in that scenario because uh, Daniel Sorensen came down on whoever that Browns player was. I can't remember his name, with his head, and the refs just didn't call it. That was fourth down. They ended up losing the game. So then the Chiefs went on. I think they went on to win the Super Bowl that year. Or we get Seattle as we would be the 2 seed in this scenario. This is where it gets into the 2 seed. Yeah, Seattle. We played them week 2, lost in overtime 38-35. There was a couple blown calls in that situation as well by refs. And then, obviously just for some reason over the last like 3 years since Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes took over, we just cannot beat the Seahawks. And it's just a weird little thing. But it's always a high scoring game. I think the first time they played it was 47-41. And then it was 41-38 last year, I think. And then it was 38-35 this year. So it's a high scoring game. But this would obviously depend on the Devon Witherspoon designation at this point. I'm not sure if he's healthy. I can't remember. Right now, I know he's not, but I don't know if he's planning or if they're planning on activating him before playoff football. And in that case, it would really depend because if you have Tariq Woolen and Devon Witherspoon, it's going to rely more on Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. But in Detroit, I don't have a problem with that being the case. Our offensive line is obviously holding up well enough to support to support two almost 1,000 yard rushers. Excuse me. And then DK. DK is going to, if he has a game like the way CeeDee Lamb had against the Cowboys this past weekend, he's going to destroy us. He's going to end up having like 400 yards receiving because he's bigger than CeeDee Lamb. He's faster than CeeDee Lamb, in my opinion. He's got a better catch radius than CeeDee Lamb, in my opinion. And Geno Smith just will toss it up to him. Just toss it up. And Dak did that a lot with CeeDee Lamb in the other game past weekend. But it was also a lot of crossing technician routes that CeeDee Lamb excels at. And we just don't have, Cam Sutton's just not covering those. So DK's game plan would be really important to how this game plays out. Because if we can't cover DK, then we can't cover Tyler Lockett, and then we can't cover JSN. And then we're going to have a harder time coming up for the run against K9 and Zach Charbonnet. And then it's just going to get out of hand really, really fast. But I also have a plan that I think Hutch, McNeil, and if James Houston is back by that point, I think those three could have a really, really big day. I think they could really, really lock down K9 and Zach Charbonnet, and then Hutch and James Houston, if they can play off of each other. And I pray that they can, to where they both are, one's getting a double team here and the other one's getting one-on-one. They just go back and forth on, putting pressure in Geno Smith's face. And, eventually those will come into the sacks. That's when you start wearing down the offensive line. You can't, they can't do anything against it. Segueing from Hutch and Houston into this Lions rookie class, which I'm going to put a graphic here. There's a lot that I want to talk about and I want to unpack because this rookie class got flamed when the Lions threw their names up on cards and ran it up to the podium. Absolutely flamed. I'm pretty sure. Let me open up this graphic so that I can talk you guys through what I'm saying. Oops. So that means I can close this one. Yeah, the Lions, and this is also playing into the fact that Jack Campbell. Or no, I'm still talking about this. Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell got a C- grade for the Lions on day one. The analysts said the Lions traded down from number 6 to number 12, grabbing an early second-round pick from the Cardinals in the deal, and surprised by picking Gibbs. He's a talented dual-threat performer with good open field speed and agility. I viewed him as a late first or early second-round value. Campbell can be a productive leader for the Lions, but again, he was picked earlier than I expected. I had him as a second-round value. It will be interesting to see how Campbell fares compared with the off-ball linebackers that are picked on day 2. So that was their analysis on the day one drafts. This is day two with Sam Laporta, Brian Branch, and then we get into the Hendon Hooker pick and Broderick Martin. But I'm really focusing on Sam Laporta and Brian Branch. We got a B plus grade for this. B plus for quite possibly the best tight end in the NFL this season, and the steal of the draft, the absolute steal of the draft. Why will this hair not stay down? I hate it. Like I'm having a great hair day other than this one little piece of hair. Anyway, after trading away TJ Hawkinson last season, the Lions selected another former Hawkeye tight end in Laporta, a very good receiver with the agility to win it at all three levels. Branch was a first-round talent as a nickel safety, but he didn't impress with his speed at the combine. Giving up a fifth-round pick to trade up for him in round 2 was reasonable. And they go on to say, landing Hendon Hooker in the third round was a steal, even though he's coming off an ACL tear. He'll be a strong backup for Jared Goff and could become the starter down the road. And then they go into the Broderick Martin pick, where they say Martin can turn into an excellent nose tackle in the NFL because of his pure girth and mobility. Though I was surprised Detroit gave up a couple fifth-round picks to move up for him. So I just want to focus up on the Laporta and Brian Branch of that analysis, and then obviously the Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell, which the graphics will be here hopefully for you guys. So going from the Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell, the Lions traded down from number 6 to number 12, grabbing an early second-round pick from the Cardinals in the deal, and surprised by picking Gibbs. That second-round pick was Sam Laporta. So they traded number 6 for the league's top 2. He's at least top 2, and I don't think 2, but it is what it is. Tight end in the league this year, and a top 5 running back in the NFL since like week 8. So I don't know. I think it was a good move. In my personal opinion, I think it was a good move because if you look, and then I will get into this. Let's look at this. So this is a new graphic. I'm going to put. I don't need to write down timestamps, I guess. This is obviously what I'm gonna be reading. What you guys are gonna be seeing on the screen right here. The Lions got a C-, which is also taking into the fact we got Jack Campbell, but the C- for day one, and the Atlanta Falcons got an A- for taking Bijan Robinson at number 8 overall, which Jahmyr Gibbs got taken 4 picks later. The analysis on the Falcons drafting Robinson is adding Robinson to the Falcons offensive arsenal made a ton of sense. All right. Even with Tyler Algier, all right, coming off a nice rookie season. Robinson is a multifaceted playmaker who will join Atlanta's last 2 first-rounders, tight end Kyle Pitts, number 4 overall in 2021, and receiver Drake London, number 8 overall in 2022, to make life easier for second-round quarterback Desmond Ridder. Head coach Arthur Smith's offense has room for 2 good young backs. It does have to be mentioned that taking a running back this early can be a risk because of attrition at the position, which just means that the running back position is losing value. But how in the world do you have an A- and then a C, or an A- and a C- difference between Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs? I don't get that. But to further my point, here's obviously I'm gonna be reading what you guys are seeing. I'm gonna stop saying that at some point. There's only a 2-inch height difference between the two. There is a 16-pound weight difference, which is a lot as a running back, but obviously they play 2 different types of games. There's less than, I guess, what would that be? An 1/8 half. That would be 5/8 inch arm difference, and then a half-inch hand difference. But this says will eventually be plus starter for the prospect grade. And then prospect grade on Bijan Robinson says year 1 starter. I guess eventually will be plus starter means he was a plus starter in week 6 and then became an absolute stud after that. I just don't get it. I don't understand why the Bijan Robinson pick was hailed, even though they had Tyler Algier, who just ran for 1,000 yards, with a very good offensive line. I mean, they're not the Lions' offensive line. But then the Jahmyr Gibbs pick gets absolutely plastered because they traded down and then got Sam Laporta. Right now, I would take Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta over Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts any day of the week. Any day of the week. They're just performing better. Now, that is also in part due to Arthur Smith's large frontal lobe. I don't know how you would even say that. And the terrible offenses that they're in. But, like, what's the difference? What's the real difference? Okay. So I'm just going to go into a little bit of stats on both of these running backs. So can I read that? I can read that. So if we go into Bijan stats, now obviously Bijan's missed a couple games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Bijan's got 16 games, and Jahmyr Gibbs has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So actually, Jahmyr Gibbs has missed more games than Bijan Robinson. But obviously, and then also you have to take into effect that Bijan's in a worse offense, and Jahmyr Gibbs didn't really get any kind of a workload for the first 4 weeks of the season. But right now, as we stand, after week 17, Jahmyr Gibbs has 169 carries for 915 yards, 5.4 average with 9 touchdowns. Bijan Robinson has 203 carries for 948 yards, 4.7 average yards per carry, and only 4 touchdowns. Now, obviously, the touchdowns don't matter because obviously Jahmyr Gibbs could have all of David Montgomery's, and Bijan Robinson could have all of Tyler Allgeier's, whoever, those don't matter. But look at the yards per carry, 5.4 versus 4.7 for, what was that, 4 more games? 12? 3, 6, 9, 14 to, was it 14 and 16? So 2 more games to have a 0.7 yards per carry difference. That's absolutely insane. Let's look into a little bit more. The highest yards per carry that Bijan Robinson has had in a game this year is 7.5. The highest in a Lions game for Jahmyr Gibbs was 9.1 against Denver when he had 11 carries for 100 yards and a touchdown. And then in this game for Jacksonville, this is also a blowout win, by the way, and this was a loss against Jacksonville in London. That wasn't in London? I guess not. He had 7.5 on 14 carries for 105 yards and 0 touchdowns. I just think Jahmyr Gibbs is better. Now, a lot of people were saying at the draft, if you're going to draft Jahmyr Gibbs, why not just sit at 6 and draft Bijan Robinson? He was the better prospect in people's opinions. Now, I will say he was a better prospect. I didn't think Jahmyr Gibbs as a prospect was on the same level as Bijan Robinson. But having played a season, having gone through all the ups and downs that they have, because Jahmyr Gibbs didn't get a good foothold in the offense until about week 6, and then Bijan Robinson is in an offense where it gets used 1 week, it doesn't get used 1 week. We can look at this. In the last, we'll just go 5 weeks. He's had 5.0 average with 15 carries, 6.0 with 12 carries, 7 carries just out of nowhere, and a 9-7 loss for 1.6 average. Then he had 10 carries, 18 carries, 16 carries. So we'll go to 11.26. Jahmyr Gibbs has had 15 carries, 11 carries, 11 carries, 8 carries, 11 carries. So Jahmyr Gibbs is getting utilized more. But then you also have these games where Bijan Robinson is getting 19 carries, 22 carries, 18 carries, 15 carries. And we'll do 15 as the same thing over here. We got 2 games with 15, and then a 26 and a 17. So Bijan Robinson is getting underutilized as no other could, but that's also playing into the part that Tyler Allgeier is a young, really good running back. Why would you take Bijan Robinson if you have trust in Tyler Allgeier? Or why still run with Tyler Allgeier when you have faith in Bijan Robinson? It's the same thing with Michael Carter in New York when they drafted Breece Hall. They said they had faith in Michael Carter. They trusted him in the offense, and then the next year they went out and drafted Breece Hall. Breece Hall comes in, explodes into the NFL, and then all of a sudden Michael Carter is on the bench. And then this year they cut him because they signed Dalvin Cook, all that stuff. But it's just, why would you run if why would you believe in Tyler Algier but draft Bijan Robinson? And then also from the other side of on the other side of the coin, why would you draft Bijan Robinson but still utilize Tyler Algier as much as you do? It doesn't make any sense. So I'm just saying, like in my opinion, I don't think the Lions. I think the Lions draft grade should be an A+ between those two. Now, I also want to defend the Jack Campbell pick because I think the Jack Campbell pick was very much warranted. I don't think it's as bad as people say it is. So, right here we have Christian Gonzalez. These are two picks that people said that the Lions should have taken. Obviously, Christian Gonzalez went before Jack Campbell, but then you get into the fact where they could have sat at 6, taking Christian Gonzalez, or they could have sat at 12, taking Christian Gonzalez, and then at 18, taking Jahmyr Gibbs and left Jack Campbell out of the equation. However you want to say it. I'm just saying that these are two prospects that the Lions were heavily rumored to be wanting, or were heavily influenced to take, considering their defensive needs and stuff like that. So they went with the 6'5", 249-pound linebacker out of Iowa, when the 6'2.5" 193-pound corner out of Penn State and the 6'1", 197 corner out of Oregon were better options in the public's opinion. My simple defense on the Christian Gonzalez side of it is Christian Gonzalez has been hurt since like week 6. Obviously, you can't control injuries, but what's helping the Lions right now? A guy who would be out since week 6 and possibly won't even come back for a playoff push if he was on the Lions, or Jack Campbell, who has shown he's had an up and down rookie year so far. It's also because the Lions had Alex Anzalone and Malcolm Rodriguez and Derek Barnes, who they trust as well. It goes back to if you trust Malcolm Rodriguez and Alex Anzalone, why draft Jack Campbell? But if you also want Jack Campbell to be that guy, why continue putting Malcolm Rodriguez and Derek Barnes into games? It doesn't make any sense. But I can stand behind it because linebacker is a hard position to learn at an NFL level. You gotta go from doing 1 or 2 specific things in college to doing 4 or 5. You gotta read an entire offense that's can be spread out one play. It's just that sounds stupid. That's not what I meant to say. But like the talent difference from college, especially at Iowa, to the NFL is immensely different. A lot of people you'll hear say the SEC is the closest thing to the NFL, and it's not even close even there. But then Joey Porter is obviously there until the first pick in the second round, and Joey Porter has had an incredible rookie season. I honestly think he's the best rookie cornerback this season, and I love Brian Branch's rookie season, but you can't knock a cornerback who's come to the NFL and done the things that Joey Porter has done. I didn't think about it. I didn't pull up stats on Joey Porter, but I just know that he has had a good rookie season and would have benefited the Lions very well. It looked like Cam Sutton and Jerry Jacobs were going to put a temporary band-aid on the Lions' secondary problems that we have been suffering from since even maybe the Darius Slay trade. But after like week 6, Jerry Jacobs just went down the tank, and then Cam Sutton has just been. We'll get into that too. But I think that Jack Campbell has done a lot for the defense, regardless of his the position that he plays. So then, oh yeah, okay, cool. This will move right into the draft day trade between the Cardinals and the Lions. So the Cardinals traded number 12, number 34, and 168 to the Lions in order to get number 6 and number 81. Like I said earlier, the Lions got Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta out of this pick, and then I can't remember who number 168 was. Was that on the other graphic? Was that Broderick Martin? Maybe. Let's look. Day 2 drafts. I don't think that could be number 96. With that move, the Lions traded back from 6, and then the Cardinals took Paris Johnson Jr. Lions fans, NFL analysts were all confused because they still had Tyree Wilson on the board, Jalen Carter on the board. To go past there, you still had Christian Gonzalez on the board, obviously. You still had a lot of people were linking Mozzie Smith to the Lions, which they were saying might go early. And then towards the back end, Miles Murphy, Brian Brisset, I think is how you say it, and Nolan Smith. Where obviously there were some mocks where they would go that high. Obviously, we'll just go right into the T.J. Hawkinson deal. Um, the T.J. Hawkinson deal, I think, was a absolute win, 1,000%. I think the Vikings lost it in every facet, even though they won. They won. I think both teams won, but I think the Lions won exponentially more. Because if you look at it, the Lions gave up a 2023 fourth rounder and a conditional 2024 fourth rounder that could become a fifth round pick if Minnesota wins a playoff game. If they won a playoff game last year, which they didn't, so it's a fourth round pick. And then the Lions got a 2023 second rounder and a 2023 fourth rounder back. They also traded this 2023 second rounder to back to the Vikings to get Jameson Williams, which I think has slowly moved forward enough to be like I think why are you not coming up? I think Jameson Williams is showing this season that he was well worth that 12th overall pick. He's still obviously getting used to being into the NFL and stuff like that. So here is the contract. Sam Laporta's contract is 4 years, $9.4 million. TJ Hawkinson's contract is 4 years, $66 million. That is quick math. This is terrible. 57 mil difference. A 57 mil difference for a better player, in my opinion. In my opinion, Sam Laporta is a better player. I think he blocks better than TJ Hawkinson. I think TJ Hawkinson might run routes just a little bit better and be a little bit better after the catch. But this season, through I think TJ Hawkinson has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 games. And Sam Laporta has been a part of 17 games. I'm pretty sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. He's only been a part of 16 games, so he was injured one of them. I don't remember which game he was injured. But like look at some of these scores for the Vikings. You got a 19-13 win, 3-0 win, 12-10 loss. You don't have games like that from Detroit. You have a 20-6 win, 20-6 win. This game was bad against Baltimore, obviously 38-6. But I blame that game on Jared Goff and his woes, which we'll get into at a later point. Sam Laporta has 81 receptions for 860 yards and 9 touchdowns. TJ Hawkinson has 95 receptions for 960 yards and 5 touchdowns. Sam Laporta on less catches and less yards, I guess, is 100 yards less, has more average yards per catch than, or is this average? Yeah, this is average catch. Than TJ Hawkinson by 0.5. And then obviously has 4 more touchdowns. And his long is almost 20 yards longer than TJ Hawkinson. So you could say that Sam Laporta is a bigger big play threat than TJ Hawkinson, which I would say. I just think that the Lions won this trade in general. You pay a guy $57 million less for the same terms. Also, he's younger. And in my opinion, like I said, he's better. So I think the Lions won the TJ Hawkinson trade. I don't think it's even close. And I think if you think it's close, that's terrible. I don't know. I think with the contract issues that the Lions and TJ Hawkinson were like so far apart on, plus you factor in age, plus you factor in productivity, and then you factor in that TJ Hawkinson had Matt Stafford for most of his Detroit career, and Sam Laporta gets to come in and automatically work with Jared Goff. I think it just worked out very well in the Lions' favor, and they just won the trade. I don't know. I already got into the Brian Branch stuff that I was going to talk about. This is something that I want to talk about too. Jared Goff and his future in Detroit, I think, is a little bit more up in question to be at the end of this year than it was at the end of last year. But I also think it's more solid than it was last year. I just don't think that Jared Goff is going to go anywhere out of this offseason. I think it was higher probability that he was going to go somewhere last offseason, as we had the number 6 overall pick. We could have taken Will Levis, could have even possibly traded up to get, you know, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, something like that. I don't know how willing the Texans would have been to trade that second overall pick. Maybe, I'm not sure, but I'm just saying, like, the sixth overall pick was a good place to be to get a quarterback. And this year we're going to be sitting at probably the 26th, 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st, or 32nd overall pick. And you're just not going to see one of those top end quarterbacks fall that far. You're not going to see, obviously, not going to see Caleb Williams and Drake May fall that far. Probably, more than likely, as close to Drake May and Caleb Williams as you can get. Won't see Jaden Daniels get that far. The only quarterbacks I could see falling that far is if Bo Nix declares, J.J. McCarthy declares. Jeez, oh, Pete, I need to take something to drink. Give me 1 second. J.J. McCarthy declares, Bo Nix declares, and Quinn Ewers declares. I think those are the top three quarterbacks you would get at 32, or 26 to 32, and then even into the second round, which you're obviously going to be picking late in the second round as well. This graphic that I'm putting up right here, I want you to look at this Chicago game, which was Goff's worst performance. This also doesn't include his fumbles. I think he had 2 fumbles in this Chicago game. He went 20 for 35, 161 yards, 4.6 average with 1 touchdown, 2 picks, and I think he had two fumbles. He also took 4 sacks in this game, which is just insane. He had a 54.6 rating and then a 29.1 QBR, which is just terrible. This is why the Lions lost that game. You go into the game saying if Jared Goff in Chicago in the cold can, piece together some sort of a good game, the Lions win this game, just run the ball. And he puts together a game like that. It's terrible. This is the Seattle loss that I was talking about earlier in the year when I was talking about possibly playing Seattle's revenge game in the playoffs. We lost 37-31 in overtime. Jared Goff goes 28 of 35 for 323 yards, an 80% completion rate, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. He took 2 sacks, but he had a 121.8 passer rating and an 82.6 QBR, which is incredible in a loss. That is incredible in a loss. You look at the majority of wins nowadays from quarterbacks, you throw for 300 yards, you win the game, and he lost in overtime. Like I said, there was a couple of bad refs calls and stuff like that. You go to this Denver game, which I was there for. The picture in the top is an actual picture of my panoramic. Like I took that photo. The first quarter was rough for both offenses, and then in the second quarter, the Lions offense just took off, and then they just never stopped from there. 24-34 for 278 yards, 70.6 completion percentage, 5 touchdowns, took 2 sacks, but had 134.6 passer rating and a 75.5 QBR. Was electric. Jared Goff was electric. He could not miss. It's what it seemed like in person. He could not miss, and he had the entire stadium behind him, which made them play even better, in my opinion. Made them play better. And then this game against the Chargers, I haven't talked about, but we won 41-38. He went 23 of 33 for 333 yards, 69.7 completion percentage with 2 touchdowns, 0 sacks, had 122.4 passer rating and 78.1 QBR. Watch this game on TV. The fact that Jared Goff was able to keep up with the Chargers offense while only being Jared Goff is what people would say was incredible to watch. He played outstanding. I'm getting tongue tied with words. He just put a masterclass on when we needed it most. And in the last drive to put Jason, was it Jake Patterson, whatever his name is, Riley Patterson, into field goal range it was like finesse. When Jared Goff is on, he's on, but when he's off, it's costing the Lions games. And the Chicago game is obviously an obvious example. Then you have the Ravens game, which is another example. I don't know why I didn't put that example up here to show you guys the stats from that game, but I think his status in Detroit is more solidified than ever, but I also think his leash is shorter, I guess is what you could say. Like, I don't think they're going to restrict the offense because of him or anything like that. Short leash doesn't mean that in that kind of a way, but I think his opportunity to make mistakes and then still have the trust from Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, I think is slightly getting slower or getting lower and lower and lower until obviously he just is not in Detroit anymore, and we have to go with either Hendon Hooker or figure out a way to get a quarterback in from the draft. Because I still think that Hendon Hooker can be a good option. We just obviously we've never seen him play in the NFL. So I just think Jared Goff. I love him. I love him. I will ride or die for Jared Goff. I cheer for him every Sunday. I was shouting his name in Detroit when we were at Ford Field. But it's really tough to sit here and see a team kind of get held back because of their quarterback play. Like you never saw that with Tom Brady. You never saw that with Peyton Manning. Obviously, you never saw that with Patrick Mahomes. You never saw that with. You see that with teams that maybe go to the Super Bowl and lose, but you don't ever see that with a winning Super Bowl team. Like when Tom Brady beat Patrick Mahomes, that team didn't get held back by Brady, or when Patrick Mahomes beat the 49ers, you didn't see that team get held back by Mahomes. You know what I'm saying? It's just one of those things that you need. You need a quarterback that's not going to hold back your team in that situation. That was just repetitive. Next thing I want to talk about is the free agent signings. Obviously, I think Glasgow, C.J. Gardner Johnson, and Dave Montgomery are to highlight. The free agent class are incredible. Have been incredible this year. For some reason, Graham Glasgow is the highest rated PFF graded guard. That's crazy. I don't understand how, but all right. Dave Montgomery has obviously been a perfect thunder to Jameer Gibbs' Lightning, and then C.J. Gardner Johnson. In the 1.5 games we saw him play, was a good leader for that Lions defense, and then Cam Sutton. Cam Sutton, dude, I can't with this man, bro. He has gotten torched. They for some reason this is what past weekend against Dallas was a perfect example. They kept putting him on CeeDee Lamb, even though he was getting torched. He got torched and then torched and then torched, and they were like, Cam Sutton, go cover CeeDee Lamb. And then torched and then torched and then torched, and then they were like, Cam Sutton, go cover CeeDee Lamb. And then just torch, torch, torch. I've seen it 1,000 times this year. Who was covering Jerry Jeudy? I'm pretty sure. Who was covering Jerry Jeudy on that 40-yard play to start the Broncos-Lions game? I'm pretty sure it was Cam Sutton. He's not been good. The first couple games this year, loved him. Was like, oh yeah, this is a perfect signing. He's been good. He's not the cornerback that you can have to guard a true wide receiver one, like CeeDee Lamb, like DK Metcalf, like a Christian Gonzalez, even though he's not a true wide receiver one in my opinion. Who else? Zay Flowers against the Baltimore Ravens. He did not fare well against Zay Flowers. Guys like that, he's just not. I feel like if we had a Jair Alexander or a Devon Witherspoon, even Cam Sutton would be a great number two corner. He'd be locked down, but he's just not a one. He's not a one. So I'm not saying that the Lions should get rid of the contract or anything like that. I think it was a good contract, and maybe he's just having a down year. You know what I mean? He can have down year. It is what it is. But I'm just saying Cam Sutton was not worth it at this point in his Detroit Lions career. And I just put Emmanuel Mosley's picture up here because, man, how can you get so unlucky? Like, what did he do in a past life to get this kind of just shit luck? Like, comes out, tears his ACL last year, comes out this year, gets contracts from the Lions. He's super excited to play for us. He's ready to get back out there, and then just first. I'm pretty sure his first game, wasn't it? Retore his ACL, or was it the Seahawks game? So it's tough to see it, man. You know what I mean? The young guy get his career ruined by injuries that you can't really control. You know what I mean? You can't do much for an ACL. You can't figure out a way to beat that. But that's going to be it for Lions Talk today. I just want to talk about two other things in this. Marvel Season 2 What If came out, and it was pretty good. I mean, it was pretty good. I liked it a lot, actually. What I don't understand, what I didn't like about it is why they are trying to make it into like a bigger thing. I understand why last season they did the whole Guardians of the Multiverse with T'Challa, Star-Lord, Killmonger, Black Panther, Captain Carter, Black Widow, all that stuff. I understand why they did that. Stop Ultron. That was a great storyline. Each episode actually led into a good ending, I think. But this season, why tie it into anything? Why tie? Why? It felt like to me that the Dark Supreme Stranger, whatever his name is, was just like a cop out. Like they didn't know where to put all the where they wanted all 7 episodes to end, so they were just like, we'll just make an episode 8 that's just insanity and doesn't make any sense. Like Wanda, like the Scarlet Witches. That's what I was gonna say. Not Wanda. She is Wanda, but the Scarlet Witch's storyline. She was a hero. She was a villain in WandaVision. Then at the end of WandaVision, she became a hero. Then all of a sudden, randomly in Multiverse of Madness, she's back to being a villain. Doesn't make any sense. Like the timeline goes from up and then down and back up, and then she's just going, and then bam, she's just randomly a villain. That's what I felt like with Dark Supreme Strange. I don't know if I missed something at the end of season 1, but he was good and then bad, 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 bad because he was trying to save Christine, couldn't figure it out, was sucking in all the demons, became bad, asked for repentance or whatever you would call it. um, then he was good at the last episode of What If season 1, and then obviously, or out of nowhere, to start this season, he's a bad guy, or to end the season, he's a bad guy. It doesn't make any sense. Like, why tie everything together? Nobody's asking for What If to be like a move, like a regular show. Like we're trying to see what if Tony Stark was able to lift Mjolnir? What if Captain America decided to be bad? What if like that's what we're trying to see. What if Thanos came to Earth and killed the other half of the population to where the new Avengers would have to form? What if like that's the stuff we're trying to see. We're not trying to see some random episodes about Captain Carter getting, like you can see in the thing, she got her shield, she's got Hela's crown, she's got the 6 Infinity Stones. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, she got the 6 Infinity Stones. You can't see it because it's cut off, but she's got Odin's fucking scepter. Like, why? We don't need to see that. We don't need to see that. And then the Kahori storyline, obviously, is incredible. I think she's gonna be. I can't wait to see her in live action. They better put her in live action because if not, I'm gonna lose it. But that episode was incredible, just like visually wise, it was nuts. Um, I think that's it for What If season 2, and then obviously another thing I want to talk about is the Percy Jackson show. I have not watched episode 4 as of this coming out. It just came out yesterday. But I have watched all the way up to episode 3. And I'm a big advocate for a show being a show or a movie being a movie. Just take it as that, whether it's based on a book or it's based on comics, anything like that. Just watch the movie for what it is. That's why a lot of people don't like the DCEU. That's why a lot of people that haven't liked the most recent Marvel movies, stuff like that. But I'm a big advocate for just watch the show. If you like the show, then you like the show. You can like the comics and like the way they spun off the show. Like you can like both. You don't have to have they don't have to be the exact same things, but words put into action scenes. Like you don't need that. But so in that aspect of it, I think the show is great. I think they're the way that they're doing it episode by episode is like chapter by chapter by chapter, and then also covering other things. I think is great. I think the castings have been good. Um, the Medusa storyline, I think you needed to go back to where the book came from for that. I don't think the way they did it in the show was very good, but it's a show for a show. Um, but yeah, if like you're looking at it as like a new guy or not a new guy, but like a guy who's read the books like me like 17 times over and over and over because it's your favorite book series and you want to take it as they needed to be exactly like the book, then it's not a very good show. I don't think. I think they've done a lot wrong. I don't think they've orientated it around the books. Like I think they're just taking the names and then taking the characters and they're like, well, this guy can do this. Like the river scene with Capture the Flag was terrible. It was terrible. Percy Jackson is not flossing in the book. Obviously, that's a new dance move. Obviously, it wasn't around when Rick Riordan wrote the book. But still, um, Annabeth isn't the one that pushed him into the river, was it? I haven't read the books in forever. But I was pretty sure Clarice is the one who threw him in the river, and then he gets claimed. Like, it was, and I like it. Like I said, I like it. I don't need it to be like the book, but yeah, that is what it is. That's the Dub Daily episode 1 coming to a close. If you guys want, check out my TikTok at DubCity81. Check out Kick for my live streams. My schedule will be up there here soon. And yeah. Make sure to subscribe and hit that bell so you guys never miss a podcast or any other videos if you want to see those. Peace.